They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me.
I'm a body language analyst, and today I'm going to be looking at this intense exchange.
Nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact
2015.
2014.
2014 and
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. That people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him. Me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him with gas contract. Gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President.
So I have to declare I do hold some bias here. As some of you may remember, I did volunteer in Ukraine at the start of the war back in 2022, and I saw what Russia did. Hundreds of thousands of innocent people are now dead as a result of Putin's decisions. And whilst Trump was president, Putin continued to wage war in the Donbass. As for the body language, Zelensky changes his proxemics to lean in and get closer to Vance when making his point. His posture indicates a distinct lack of stress. If he were experiencing stress triggered by emotions such as anger or fear, he wouldn't move his body closer to the stressor. However, after finishing speaking, he instantly leans back and folds his arms over his torso. This is an example of distancing paired with a self-hug, and is a method of self-regulation. Zelensky immediately realizes that in making his point, he creates tension with Vance, which in turn generates him stress, which is why we see him try and self-regulate. It's important to note that this only occurs after he finishes his statement.
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the...
So Vance instantly interlocks his fingers when listening to Zelensky disagree with him. This is the same as the self-hug, and is a method of self-regulation. Physical contact is one of the main ways the brain attempts to reduce its physiological arousal, and shows clearly that Vance is becoming stressed by Zelensky. Remember, stress can be caused by a number of different emotions, so I can't precisely say which one caused this response. One thing that Zelensky does do here, which I think is really interesting, is that when being directly challenged by Vance, he maintains extremely strong eye contact with him, and rarely looks away, only diverting his attention to the journalists. When faced with a stressor, we'd expect to see what's called distancing behaviours, as the brain tries to avoid the stressor, but we don't really see this here. Again, showing that Zelensky isn't intimidated by Vance, whereas Vance expresses multiple instances of self-soothing, rubbing his hands together and interlocking his fingers.
War, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
Not
cards.
playing cards.
Right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
what do you
You're
think about?
gambling with
What is-
World.
So again, something interesting here. When Trump contradicts Zelensky, this is when we see a distinct shift in his nonverbals. Zelensky immediately performs self-soothing with his hands, interlocking his fingers, just like Vance did. And he also shows signs of the globus response, which is caused by the muscle tension in the throat, generating a significant urge to swallow. His defense mechanism has become triggered, and his body immediately tries to self-regulate, showing that Trump stepping in has a substantial impact on him. And we also see Zelensky begin to distance to avoid looking at Trump when the confrontation becomes heated. We distance not only to avoid generating ourselves stress, but to also reduce the confrontation. Eye contact is confrontational in this context, so the brain naturally tries to avoid this, which is why we see Zelensky looking away. In prehistoric times, this distancing would help us avoid being killed by others in a social situation, as it signifies that you don't wish to challenge or be a threat. It's the same reason why dogs will show you their bellies when they've been told off. They expose their vulnerabilities to signify that they don't wish to challenge you. And as usual, Trump is extremely controlled with his nonverbals, letting out pretty much nothing he doesn't want the public to see. And as I say in all my videos featuring him, Trump is extremely deliberate in terms of his nonverbals, and rarely lets emotions have an impact.
World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's
with
back
all
to
respect to
you.
your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once? This
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of
you
America
speaking about?
and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not
Yeah.
speaking loudly. Your country is
Can I-
in big
can I-
trouble.
can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No.
Can
You've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not
I
winning.
know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn
We-
good chance of
we are
coming out
staying,
okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this
We
cabinet.
gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid
thank-
president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
you invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak-
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it.
So here is probably the most interesting thing from the entire argument. This hand touch from Trump. It appears on the surface to be a friendly gesture, and what we'd call in body language rapport building. Physical contact is often made between people in communication, as it acts as a method of building trust. Biologically, the chemical oxytocin is released by the brain when someone receives physical contact, which helps generate a feeling of trust, building rapport. However, Trump isn't doing this. Not in the slightest. You can see that he's actually pushing Zelensky forcefully, even making him move in his chair. He's scolding him. This is a clear attempt to assert dominance and is by no means a friendly gesture, and really does reveal Trump's strategy here. He's attempting to pressure Zelensky to his terms so that he can force his peace deal through. It's aggressive diplomacy, and it's not my place to lecture you on whether or not this is the correct way to go about ending the war. I'm not a Hollywood actor.
From Putin in 3 days. This is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks. Of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I
And
tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of times thank you to American people.
Except that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running
I
low
know.
on soldiers.
Don't-
Listen,
don't please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then
President.
then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're
I
saying
said-
you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what-
That
what
wasn't
this
with me.
means. It
That was with
wasn't with
a
you.
guy named Biden, who was not a smart person.
This
That
is
was
your,
with,
this
that was
is
with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make, because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks?
Again, when Vance blatantly confronts Zelensky to his face, he gives off no reaction in terms of his nonverbals. He doesn't attempt to pacify or distance, and I think again it's because he doesn't see Vance as his equal, whereas he really does listen to Trump. Trump's words carry weight. And when disagreeing with Trump, notice how Zelensky always avoids looking directly at him. He does everything in his power to avoid making eye contact in order to not appear confrontational. He's trying to de-escalate the situation by trying to appear non-confrontational and non-threatening. And towards the end, he blatantly avoids looking at Trump when he's speaking, instead diverting his attention towards the media for an unnatural amount of time. This could be seen as an act of disrespect, but I think it's more likely an attempt on his part to distance from the stressor. He tried to speak to Trump, but was effectively lectured, so chose to avoid all communication so as to not further the argument.
She's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
What if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now? Okay? What if they broke it? I don't know. They broke it with Biden, because Biden, they didn't respect him. They didn't respect Obama. They respect me. Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. All right, I think we've seen enough. What do you think? Huh? This is going to be great television, I will say that.
So here Zelensky stops all communication with Trump, and to be fair, Trump has talked over Zelensky every time he tried to contradict them or elaborate himself. I wouldn't say that this is a lack of respect, merely that he sees the conversation as being non-productive, so doesn't give it his attention. He also maintains the self-touch with his hands, showing that he's still attempting to self-regulate. I do see the little head nod he does when Trump says Putin respects him, but I'll let you guys read into that one. Overall, I think that Zelensky is firmly against whatever deal Trump has planned with Russia, and his non-verbals show quite clearly that he's not afraid to argue against and stand up for his point of view, to sit in the Oval Office and tell the president and vice president that American diplomacy with Russia has failed without showing any signs of stress demonstrates clearly his character and temperament. And escalating the argument with Trump causes him extreme amounts of stress, hence the self-regulation, but the same can't be said with Vance. It's clear from this meeting that Trump is willing to resort to pressure tactics both physically and in terms of politics, as demonstrated by the recent comments about him being a dictator for cancelling the elections. Ironically, Winston Churchill, whose bust Trump proudly placed in that very room, proposed plans to cancel the UK elections during World War II.